You're listening to the Bitcoin Lawyer Podcast.
All right, everyone. Thank you. Welcome back to the Bitcoin Lawyer Show. Bitcoin Lawyer is your legal bridge between Bitcoin and freedom. Today, I am joined by Esha Kashyap. Esha, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes, you are, Adam.
Okay. Esha is the head of sales for Alpha Immigration, a Dubai-based second citizenship and residency company. So let's get into it. Esha, why don't you go ahead, first of all, explain a little bit about what second residency, second citizenship is all about, and then go ahead and explain a little bit of your background for everyone listening.
Sure, Adam. So, hi, everyone. This is Esha. I am head of sales for Alpha Immigration. I'm in this industry for over 6 years now, and I've catered to clients who are interested in getting another passport, another citizenship, or residency by investment. If I have to give a little background about what citizenship by investment or residency is, it means programs which are government programs launched by certain countries, certain jurisdictions, and clients, applicants who want to get another passport for themselves, or they want to relocate to another country for better future. These are the clients and applicants we deal with. And of course, it comes down to how soon or what the client needs. If somebody is interested in getting another citizenship in a shorter duration of time, then citizenship by investment or the direct CBI programs are the ones which we would recommend a client. And if somebody is okay with the timelines and their primary purpose is to relocate to another countries, then residency by investment is what we recommend.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for explaining that for our listeners, because some people may not be completely aware that the fact that that right or that privilege even exists, the fact that you can buy citizenship or residency. So let's get into a little bit of the particulars, okay? So let's talk about the type of client that you would potentially have and what they might be looking for. So if, for example, if a client comes to you and is interested in second citizenship, what would you say to them, or how could you sort of help them understand the concept if they're not, familiar with even the concept or any of the programs that are out there?
Okay. So basically, Adam, it comes down to understanding the need of the client. So in our first or the initial consultation, what we do with our clients is, so everyone comes up with some information. Usually it's all a mix of information that they would have, because there's a lot of information out there. So first we have to understand what the client really needs. So if they are looking for example, client comes to me and they say that, you know what, I've heard about these programs. I've heard that there is a program in Europe where I can get a passport in 8 months, 10 months. And that is where you would correct the client, and you would tell them that, no, that's not the fact. European programs are primarily the residency by investment programs. They are not direct citizenship programs. And then you would further, elaborate in the sense that what does that client want? Can they really complete the residency requirements? And if not, then we would tell them about the CBI programs, like the Caribbean programs or Vanuatu program or these direct citizenship programs. And that is when we understand the entire, need of the client, and then we give them solution accordingly.
Okay. Sorry. So just to fill in for listeners, I'll circle back about sort of the structure of these programs. But would you say that a lot of clients come in with sort of knowing half truths? Like they've heard about this or that program and they've heard, oh, well, if I go to this country and I can get citizenship in this amount of time, because they've been pitched that, they watched a YouTube video with erroneous information from a year ago, and the landscape has changed in that time frame. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Does happen often where clients come in thinking they know something and it's complete misinformation?
Absolutely. So, for example, very recently, I came across one client who was interested in applying for Montenegro citizenship program. and that program has been closed. And maybe at the time when the program was available, he was doing his research and he knew that the program exists. But you have to make the client well aware that this program is not available anymore. So what other program can you recommend? So again, it will come down to what suits him, his requirements, and then we will go ahead with that.
Sure. Yeah. Obviously, like two of the most probably well-known CBI programs that have closed in the most recent years have been Cyprus and Montenegro. Both of those countries had CBI programs. Currently, neither of those countries do have that. Cyprus does have a permanent residency program that is open, but yeah, obviously the landscape shifts quite fast.
Correct.
In this industry. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. Similar is the case with Spain. Spain has stopped the program of late. Very recently, they have given a deadline of April, and April onwards, this program will not exist also. So, a lot of things keep on changing. A lot of new programs keep on, coming up. So you have to be well aware of what you can recommend the client for as per their requirement.
Absolutely. And a lot of that, we can kind of get into this a little bit later if you want, but just on a very surface level, a lot of these programs are sometimes at the will of the government that's currently in power. So if one party comes in or another party gets voted out, sometimes these programs go away. That's been the case in Portugal as well. So, Portugal has basically, they went from almost scrapping the program altogether, but then they just got rid of the real estate option. Now Spain is completely ending their golden visa program. A lot of these programs are just at the political whim of whoever's in power. If a client comes in and they may not know which countries are even available, rather than just taking out a map and pointing at a few countries, what would you say could be some selling points? What would be some advantages to someone taking the CBI route versus a traditional naturalization path? Like they move there and, they spend the necessary time to gain residency and then naturalize the traditional way. What would be some advantages of going the CBI route?
Again, Adam, say that it will come down to the client's profile. For example, if I am sitting across ultra net worth individual or a high net worth individual who is a businessman who has businesses across the globe, and his sole purpose is that he wants to get another citizenship for the purpose of accessing different countries. He doesn't want to wait for the visas to come in. He needs the privileges of visa-free access. But at the same time, he or his family is well settled wherever they are and they don't want to relocate. They cannot do the residency. Then I would recommend only the Caribbean citizenship programs to them, because then that solves its purpose. Whereas if somebody says that, no, I'm okay relocating, I'm okay spending this much time, I can do this. For example, 180 days or 190 days is something which is very feasible for me to complete in any country. Then I would say, then yes, sure, go ahead. And again, it will also come down to how much investment can they make? Because every country has its own requirement.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it really depends on one, I guess, how mobile the individual or their family is. And if they're looking for perhaps like a lifestyle change, geographic location change, or if they're really just looking to have second passport, a back pocket plan, that kind of thing. So yeah, I can completely understand that. Do you ever run into some pushback from investors? When we talk about high net worth individuals, we're talking about individuals that are worth 10 million US or more. And for some of these programs, they get up to over $1 million quite quickly. There's, two of those programs out there. But do you ever run into some pushback where they maybe it's not that much money relative to them, but they just sort of, I wouldn't necessarily say that being cheap, but they're just not accustomed to having to shell out that level of money for what they see as just a transactional type of arrangement?
Of course, every now and then we come across people who feel that, especially when it comes to the donation to the country, for example, they don't see the value to it. And yes, there are clients who wouldn't go ahead after hearing the amounts that they have to shell out or spend to get another citizenship for themselves. That's always there. But again, it is really important for them, they don't really care and they go ahead with it. So you will always come across mix of people, mix of high net worth individuals who, if it is a lot of money right now, they see that this is something that will help them in the future with the kind of money they have. They have to diversify their funds, for example, and stuff like that. So yeah, you will always come across mix of people. Some people wouldn't want to invest that much money, and others will feel okay with it.
So speaking about sort of like the value, how do you sort of highlight the lifestyle benefits that may bring about getting a second passport versus like the financial benefits versus the sunk cost? Because they might think maybe if they're paying in crypto, we've just hit a new all-time high a few weeks ago. So I think it was December 14th, if I'm correct, 108,000 US. But we're just now over the 100,000 US mark again today. Today's January 17th. So possibly dealing with people who are, new millionaires that have, had relative new wealth. How would you go about trying to convince them, like, look, if you part with this much money, you're going to exponentially save this much over the long run? How do you sort of, bring that into focus and help them realize that, look, this might seem like some good amount of money now, but long run, it'll definitely bring about more financial freedom or maybe tax savings, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so it comes down to neutral jurisdictions in this case. For example, what we have to understand is where the client is based also. So there are countries, for example, if you're a European citizen or if you're an American citizen, no matter which passport or second nationality you take, you're always taxed on your worldwide income. So it comes to, if the client want to sell in a neutral jurisdiction, I would say, wherein there are no taxes or almost zero taxes on their global income. We have seen certain countries which are very open to crypto investors, and then we give them tailor-made solutions accordingly. So if somebody, for example, has only a Caribbean passport and they are living in Dubai is a neutral jurisdiction as well. They don't tax you, right?
Yeah.
And same is the case with Caribbean. So that can be a solution for a lot of crypto investors. And this is the kind of solution we would recommend to new crypto investors, as you said, who will have to, spend a little money, some money.
Mhm.
We're looking at $200,000 or something to get the citizenship. But in long run, they would make a lot more money with the investments they have. They can diversify their funds by investing in real estate and stuff like that. For example, in Dubai, the market is booming. So these are the kind of solutions you can always recommend and give to the clients.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, kind of staying on topic with, the idea of different jurisdictions and new opportunities, what are some of the different trends, I would maybe call them evolving patterns, that you're seeing in the CBI and residency by investment world? Are you seeing any trends that are developing in any certain jurisdictions or just in general in the industry?
If you're talking about the jurisdiction of the CBI programs, then I will say that of late, Caribbean programs, they have doubled their prices. So I have seen a downfall in the demand of this Caribbean citizenship-by-investment program. Last year, for example, the requirement for a single applicant was $100,000, and now it is over $200,000. Now I see that, they end with ETA coming in maybe next year or this year in Europe, wherein everybody who has visa-free access to Europe, which the Caribbean programs offer, they will have to take pre-authorization any which ways. So all these factors have really lowered the demand of the Caribbean passports or citizenships, I will say. I have seen in last 2 years that Vanuatu is very stable. There is still demand out there. People are, because the money they're asking for, the investment they have to make, it's not that much. It starts from $135,000. So it's still, way less than what the Caribbean programs are asking for. I also see that Noru, which is the program that has been launched this year, that will do really good in the future as well, because they are adhering to the requirements that other countries want. They want to do the interviews and the due diligence, which should be done to the applicants. So I see that program can do really well as well. And I'm sure that new programs will start in near future.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about new programs a little later if you'd like, but I just kind of want to play devil's advocate here for a second, because you mentioned the volume being down in the Caribbean countries. So just to set the table for any listeners who may not know, there's 5 Caribbean countries that offer citizenship by investment. And there was a memorandum of understanding that was signed last year. Basically, they were strong-armed by the EU and the US over Grenada has E2 access. The US passed a law requiring people to have 3 years of residency to be able to apply for that visa. Do you maybe, and I know this is all speculation, conjecture, possibly, but do you see maybe any of those countries backing out of the MOA and going rogue, maybe setting, their own prices, to try to undercut the other countries that maybe are still bound to the MOA?
If they wanted to do that, they would have done it by now. That's all I would say. Because now the announcements are already made. The government websites, if you look into it, the prices everywhere is already updated. And I don't see any of these 5 to, back out of the MOA now, because it kind of backlashes when a country loses visa-free access to the EU, for example. It really damages the reputation of the country's program. And we saw the same with Vanuatu as well. The clientele kind of shrink, because they lost the visa-free access to the EU. So I don't see any of these 5 backing out, but maybe, if we don't know, maybe some other country might come out with their own program and maybe they would want to do that. But it comes to these 5, I don't see that happening.
I know, most of them, there's nuances and slight differences between each of them, but relatively all 5 of the Caribbean countries, you've got Dominica, St. Lucia, Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, Barbuda, and Grenada. All 5 pretty much price points are very similar now under the MOA. That could definitely potentially happen, but I just wanted to get your take on that. Talking about, we spoke a little bit about crypto investors. Are there any ways that you see that any of these CBI countries could market towards sort of a younger, maybe, tech savvy demographic? Because, you might have bought Bitcoin 10 years ago when you were 15 years old, let's say, hypothetically, right? And you're 25 and we're at a new all-time high, and you find yourself now with over 7 figures, and you're like, well, got to put this money somewhere or potentially put it to use. Like, do you see any potential ways that any of these countries could market to that kind of demographic?
Yes, certainly. You see, crypto wallets are still not considered as the proof of funds for any of the Caribbean. So you still have to prove your, the source of the original funds. So if new measures are put in place where this can be counted as legitimate source of funds, definitely a lot of applicants would want to go ahead and invest their money in getting another citizenship or investing in the real estate options that are available in all 5 Caribbean. And there is a holding period in place, but you can make some money out of it as well. And you're free to sell it after 5 years when the prices will be higher as compared to what they are now. So yes, I would say that if right measures are put in place where the legitimacy of funds can be established with the new crypto investors, then definitely we will see a lot of new applicants, I would say younger generation going for these programs. which we are actually seeing also. I come across a lot of young people who have made a lot of money with crypto. And in recent past, yes, there has been a surge. But again, it comes down to where they can use the funds and where they cannot. Their crypto, the money that they have in their wallet.
Yeah, obviously some places are a little more lenient. No, we're not talking about breaking any, laws. They're just a little bit more accepting, maybe just a little bit more friendly to the industry in general. Touching on that, I wanted to ask, do you see any applicants from any specific professions, any, certain industries where maybe they're showing more interest in CBI programs?
Profession specific, I wouldn't say. No, it always comes down to your country of origin, and it comes down to, so you see a lot of countries are at war, for example. So I see wherever there is chaos, wherever there are problems, those are the people they want to safeguard their families. So it always comes down to where you come from rather than any specific profession. That's what I have seen in the past. So it really, no, I don't see any specific profession. It is not industry specific. It is need specific, I would say.
Yeah, that I can definitely understand. All right, that's interesting to know. I wanted to talk about more from a governmental standpoint, maybe rather than from the client standpoint. We can look at it from a governmental standpoint. Do you think that there's more roles that governments can take to try to attract international investors, either through offering better tax laws or trying to be more creative with their CBI programs? Do you think that there's any, not to get specific, but just general steps that a government could take to try to attract potential investors within this industry?
Of course. So you see, what the governments can do is make their programs as hassle-free as they can, is what I will say. For example, again, I will come down to, if somebody is a big businessman, has a lot of things to juggle, a lot of places to be in at one particular time, getting documentation from such an individual gets difficult at times. They have people who work for them, but sometimes certain things, certain signatures, forms, that's what they have to do, right? So if the government of these programs, if they can make their programs simpler, I would say, that could be a plus. If they can shorten the timelines, that would be really great. I'm not sure if you know, but one of the agreement programs, they are taking up to 16, 18 months to conclude an application. And it has become extremely frustrating for the investors. They have already put in a lot of money, and they have not gotten their approvals yet. So after 16 months, what would you tell a client? You have to tell them to be patient, but then until what point?
And how do you go back and tell a client that I'm sorry, things have shifted? 6 months ago, or let's say 8 months ago, when you first lodged your application, we didn't anticipate this surge of applications to try to get in before the price increase. And now I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think it was either the Q3 numbers were just published on a website I'm sure both of us are familiar with.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, of course.
So those numbers where they're saying that even one country, I won't say which, but they're at over 2 years now, I believe.
Correct. Absolutely. Yes.
So what do you tell a client? Hey, look, you got everything in, okay, you're under the old price plan, but you're looking at another 18 months when it's 6 months in. That's obviously not a good value from their perspective. So that's definitely going to be something that maybe countries are going to have to take another look at, about trying to ease that backlog.
Correct.
That's obviously up to each program and each country themselves to try to figure that out.
Absolutely. So these are the few things that they can do, simplifying the process. Maybe, if they can put in measures where the entire system can be online and physical, because sometimes what happens is physical submissions have to happen, but If one document is missing or two documents are missing, then everything goes back 3 months, 4 months, because you have to ship back. Your file goes down the pile and then all these things. So online submissions, for example, only can ease the process and the timeline to a certain extent.
You're dealing at the mercy of government bureaucrats who are simply just going through the motions of what their law requires them to do. And if it requires a stamp and their law says a stamp, but one paper doesn't have the stamp, but everything else related to that one paper does have the stamp, and there's no rational person would question the validity of it. Rules are rules. So
Right.
sometimes cases get kicked back. So that's another issue. So talking about things like that, maybe protocols that countries could do to make things perhaps a little more appealing or easier for CBI applicants. I mean, like you mentioned, online submission. Like, do you think, and I know obviously each country has their own issues, their own requirements, but just in general, do you think there's any sort of general things or a few things that maybe countries could do to make it a little easier on applicants?
So when it comes to CBI programs, I think the process is pretty much straightforward in the sense of they don't need you to go to the country. They don't want you to travel to the country for the process, except for one of the Caribbean islands, if you're talking about those. Vanuatu doesn't need you to go to the country. Maybe what they can do is, I think it all comes down to timelines now, Adam. It's more about somehow shortening the time periods that these countries are taking to conclude the applications. I think that is what will help in a longer run, because nobody wants to wait for 2 years to get their citizenship.
Right.
Nobody, no investors want to do that. And it's getting really difficult. People have started applying for, they have started asking, okay, I'm waiting for 18 months. Could you please recommend something which I can get in 2-3 months? So that is when I see Vanuatu, and then Nauru is saying 6 months, for example, for the processing time. We will see how it works in the future. But if this is what they really conclude the applications in this time frame, then it will be a hit program also.
Sure. So that's actually kind of what I wanted to get into next. So, dealing with this timeline, there's obviously countries have their own operating procedures, standards. When you take on a new client or, before even taking them on, what are some steps that maybe you take to try to deal with the required due diligence versus not making it too cumbersome or too invasive? Because when you're dealing with these type of individuals, sometimes privacy is of the utmost importance. Privacy, discretion. They don't want this to get out because maybe they have, let's say, a possible merger going on, something like that. You kind of balance that line with due diligence, not, digging too deep on an individual where they feel uncomfortable.
Right. So it comes down to setting the expectations right from the beginning. And what we do for our clients before taking them on board is, of course, we do our own research. If somebody is a well-known figure, a lot of things are available on the internet about them. So we always do that kind of research about our clients before taking them on board. Another important step that we take before taking any application is we ask for the applicant's passport copy, and we do our own background check through WorldCheck, which is a licensed software. And if anybody is flagged anywhere, or if anything is out there because of which the application, we know that this application it will not be successful, it will not go through, we are very upfront and blunt about it, that whether we can take you on board or before taking a single penny from the applicant. So this is where we kind of build on that trust as well. The applicants also understand that, okay, we are not just after, just signing up an agreement and starting their application. It is a lot more to it than only taking you on board. Because as an individual agency, as a consultancy, it is very important for us to associate with the right applications, because that's how we build our rapport with the respective governments as well. The more successful applications we do, the more future prospects for us as a company.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. We don't need to tell tales outside school to say, but there have been a few countries, we won't name specific ones, but that have gone back, revoked citizenship, and even in some cases have gone back to the applicant and said, hey, we know you underpaid.
Yep.
We know you kind of had this deal on the side. That is normally done. I still have yet to hear of a case where it's done on the donation side, but there are, shall we say, shady companies that are doing this through the real estate, where they're taking kickbacks and it's just kind of a shell game. And countries are going back and asking, hey, we know you didn't pay this, so pay up, or we'll essentially just cancel your citizenship.
Yeah.
So what would you tell a client who's thinking about coming on board now versus maybe a year? Staying on the topic of due diligence, we only see further encroachment by governments through non-governmental agencies as well, like the FATF, the IMF with El Salvador, having them declare that Bitcoin is no longer legal tender just so they could get, a loan for their country. What would you tell a client that, is a little worried about like government encroachment or like further due diligence?
See, what we see and what we have been seeing, a trend is everyone is trying to tighten the screws. So
Yeah.
I would always recommend to our clients that now is the time. If you want to really do this, do it now, because later on, we wouldn't even know if the program exists. 1 year from now, we don't know if this program will be there or not, or what the pricing will be. The
Right.
same thing happened with the Caribbean programs, for example. I came across, there are a hell lot of clients who really wanted to do it. They just deferred it. They couldn't find out the time, or they were, a little short of money or something or the other. And now the programs, they just cannot afford them. So for every applicant, I would say that if you can do it, if your budget allows you to do it, now is the time. And just go ahead and complete your application, because forget about 1 year. We don't know what will happen in 6 months' time. And the government, everything is changing. The governments are changing everywhere. New laws, new policies keep coming up. So better to safeguard your interest now, because of course, when somebody is talking about getting another citizenship, they would want to take an informed decision. And after a couple of consultations, they already tell them the best solution. So if they don't do it now, tomorrow they might not be able to do it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. These, like we mentioned earlier, governments change, new parties come into power, and, people get voted out, get voted in, laws change. So kind of talking again more about government perception, notice that this kind of kicked in more during COVID, when people were at home, didn't weren't allowed to leave or even go outside in some jurisdictions. I noticed that the media really started trying to paint the citizenship by investment as like citizenship for sale, trying to shame people or shame the industry for, offering a service. We're talking about sovereign nations that aren't beholden to anyone else. These are free countries with free governments that are elected by the people. None of these jurisdictions are communist countries or run by a dictator. So, how do you try to combat that perception, like when the media talks about the CBI industry as, oh, you just sell passports to rich people? Because there's another side with what the governments actually do with the money that they sell. So can you maybe talk about that perception versus like government implementation of how they are good stewards of those funds?
So it's not that anyone and everyone who wants to apply for the citizenship program, they can just go ahead and take it. That's not how it works. Every government does their own due diligence, and you have to pass that due diligence in order to get the citizenship of that country. For example, the Caribbean programs, they not only your business, they also check exactly where that business is located. They do their ground background check as well. They have third-party agencies who are on board with them, and each one of them have those. So it's a very thorough due diligence that they do, and only after that you're granted citizenship. So I wouldn't say that it is for sale. If it was for sale, then everybody could do it. If you're a clean person today, but during the process and your due diligence is not complete, and you did something which is unlawful or against the law, you will never pass it. And if you don't pass it, your application will be rejected.
Not even committed, but just sometimes accused. That can be
Yeah.
enough for, a potential applicant to get flagged where something comes up. Maybe it's a political individual and they allegedly, nothing proven in court, not convicted of anything, but someone points a finger and says, 20 years ago, this happened or whatever, that can be to sidetrack a potential application.
Of course. And I have come across a lot of applications where the government has come back to us and they have told us that this particular client is cited somewhere or the other in one of the cases. Please give us proof that this was not the case or the case has been closed. And we have done that. And the applications were approved after given the right proofs that this client is absolutely clean. So again, if the applicant cannot provide the proof of being a clean individual, they will not pass the due diligence. So I wouldn't say that these programs are for sale. No, there is a lot of investment that these countries ask for. They use that money for the economic development of the country. For example, the real estate programs which are in the Caribbean islands, they actually build the resorts, then they use those resorts for the tourism purpose to boost the tourism in the country. And their economy is based on these programs because the funds are used to make schools, bridges, hospitals. Yeah, so this is how the country is using the money. In Vanuatu, for example, the coconut oil fund or the cocoa farming, these things are happening. And the country, if you look at it, if you compare the development that has happened in the country in over 5 years, it's commendable, and it's only because they could generate that kind of money through the programs which are in place, and it really helps the country. And these are small islands, so they really depend on these programs as well. So they wouldn't want to do anything to jeopardize their program, and this was the main reason why the MOAs were signed amongst these countries, because they don't want to just close their program.
Yeah, absolutely. You make a really good point about, especially with the island countries, if you will, that have these CBI programs, a lot of their industry is now based on tourism. So not just trying to get tourists to come and spend money, but also take in money through these CBI programs, which then benefit the local population as well. So it's just trying to bring in money through as many avenues as possible and maintain an upstanding reputation so that everyone is appeased, maintain travel privileges, that sort of thing. It's a constant balancing act, I see. So I just kind of wanted to pivot a little bit and talk a little bit about, the issue of trust. Because obviously when we're talking about these programs, we're not just talking pocket change, right? We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes millions of dollars, depending on the program. So when you're talking to a potential client, what are some of the ways that you can build trust with them? We touched a little bit on the idea of discretion, privacy with potential applicants. So how do you go about trying to reassure a client who might be a little apprehensive about beginning this process?
I think building trust begins from the very first conversation you have with a client. That actually lays down the entire foundation. It is very important, like you said, the discretion or the privacy of the clients. It's very important to make them understand that whatever data we have of theirs or whatever information we have of theirs is only with us or with the government that they are, they want to apply the citizenship program, for example. So it's very important to make them understand that nobody is going to, reveal your information to anybody. It's all very private. It's all very confidential. Secondly, I think it comes down to it, and I think it's very important is you really don't want to just sell. What you have to do is really consult with the client. You should be able to understand their need first. For example, if somebody is saying, coming with a preconception of this is what I want, I'm very clear about it. But what you have to do is understand, okay, what do you do? Why do you want it? What is your requirement? It all comes down to that. And then maybe you can give them a better solution than what they think was the best for them. So it's not about selling one program or selling any program. It's more about catering to the need of the clients. That is where you really build the trust, I'd say. And then also, if you're there with your client throughout the process, if you're there with them throughout the way, every step of the way, updating them what's happening and whatnot, I think that is where they are able to trust you even more. And then this becomes a source of, I would say, the best source to generate more leads as well for yourself. Because once you complete one application properly, then the word of mouth is the best kind of marketing that you can do for this industry. You do one case right, and they will refer you 10 more people. And that's how we have been doing our business in the past all these years. And it has worked really well for us. So again, it will come down to not selling, understanding the need, and be there with your clients. If it is taking slightly longer, let them know that it is taking longer than expected, what's happening and what is not happening. And they tend to remain calm and they tend to trust you.
I think that's a really good point. Just trying to stay in contact with the client, but also trying to, I think maybe also mitigate their expectations, because some of them might have this preconceived notion, they heard from someone. So much of this information, good God, is so much just someone told me, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, well, who told you? Well, this one person I met at a dinner party. Okay. Are they in the industry? Do they have any idea what they're talking about? Well, they watched a YouTube video and then they told me it was, and you just go, oh, okay. First of all, this is a super, super fast moving industry. And, people come in and they're just like, well, they think they know everything. But like you said, you have to manage their expectations and kind of educate them at the same time with that.
And setting that expectations when it comes to the processing of the application as well. For example, if somebody, they tell you it will take only 3 months. No, my dear, it wouldn't take 3 months. Yes. It will take 1 year. Please consider 1 year. Yeah. So you
collect documents.
Correct.
Then just to get everything, maybe it has to be apostilled, maybe it has to be certified or translated even, just prepare the case, maybe on a good day.
Yeah, exactly. No, there have been timelines where we could actually deliver the passports and citizen certificates in 4 to 6 months. But now the timelines have completely changed. So if somebody is coming in after speaking to somebody, some of their friend or family who did this process 2 years back, now exactly. It's not the same. It's completely different.
Yeah.
Now we are talking about different timelines. You're talking about different documentation or for certain countries as well. So it's... Yeah, that's how it goes.
That's a really good point. You have the implementation of now, touching on the Caribbean countries again. This now requires an interview. It doesn't have to be in person. It can be virtual. That's still, some people might see that as another inconvenience. You talk to someone who did it, like you said, 2 years ago, and they're like, I never spoke with anyone from the country. And then just one day, someone from the agency called and said, hey, your passport's ready to pick up. Just because I know we're a little over our time, I'll just kind of get to some other questions I had. I just want to try to be respectful of that. Kind of, just looking at the future of the industry. We're starting 2025 now, just a few weeks. Are there any, prediction? And I know we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but anything that you think might potentially happen later this year, or any improvements, maybe just in general, not without that you'd like to see in the industry?
I think it's a wait and watch game at the moment. Are so many things happening really? So much chaos in the world. So of course, when it comes to applicants from the point of view of applicants, I would say that a lot more people would want to keep a plan B ready for them in case something else happens. That's one thing I can say for sure. But when it comes to programs and the landscape and how the industry will shape, we already know that Hungary will start taking applications very soon. So that will be a good program to look at. And I am so sure a lot other programs will come out, a lot of countries, because everybody now knows that what kind of economic growth a country can get through these CBI programs. So if they are able to streamline their process and they're able to launch their own programs with minimum requirements, but at the same time with the right due diligence and the right ethical requirements, I think that will happen as well. But yeah, let's see, maybe new programs will come out and we'll be speaking about other programs in the near future.
There's one thing about this industry that I've realized is that there is so much gossip, and people, love to gossip in this industry. Well, or speculate. Obviously, no one can say for sure, like, oh, absolutely, this will happen. But I'm going to make a prediction on this, just based on the situation in Malta, where the European Commission sued Malta and the Advocate General sided with Malta and upheld their sovereignty. Under EU law, nationality and citizenship falls to the member state. So member states are sovereign countries that have every right to issue passports, citizenship to whoever they want.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to go out on a limb here. I think, maybe if any of these ascending countries, Montenegro or maybe even Albania, I think Albania right now is at the forefront of becoming the newest member to join the EU, potentially later this year, but I still think it's perhaps a few years off. That's been the speculation that, in 2025, Negro and Albania would join. Yeah. I definitely think we might see the rise of another citizenship by investment program within Europe, either in one of the ascending countries or possibly in, one of the countries that are currently in the EU, just based on the green light that they got from the Commission last year. So I'll just kind of wrap this up. Any, final words, final thoughts you want to share with any listeners or anyone who might be considering citizenship by investment, residency by investment, any words of wisdom or anything you might say to someone who's considering?
I think I would say that if anything sounds too good to be true, just do your own due diligence. Be well informed. The false promises a lot of people would make, and we will do this, we will do that in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Don't listen to that. And also, every program, the government, which the citizenship by investment program of any country, they have their own government website that anyone can, look at and verify the information. So if anybody is telling you that they can make something happen for you in half the price, don't listen to them. Be well aware of what you're doing. That's all I would say.
And just to piggyback on that, not all countries, but quite a few of them actually even have the government fees listed.
Yeah. Correct.
So they might say, this much for a dependent if they're under this age, because there are variations. Like some programs allow you to add dependent parents. I think
siblings.
That's another one. There's age limits that change. Some of them I think are even up to age 30 if they're unmarried. If you're thinking of applying for one of these programs, check the government website, and if they list the government fees, double check what your agent is charging you, because a lot of times those agents will just tack on a few hundred or even, few thousand extra just to kind of skim off the top if they think, the applicant isn't paying attention. So yeah, we'll just wrap this up. I just want to thank you so much for your time. Again, I've been speaking with Esha Kashyap, head of sales for Alpha Immigration based in Dubai. Esha, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for speaking with me about this very nuanced, but very interesting and evolving topic and industry. So really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Adam. It was lovely speaking to you. I really enjoyed our time and the discussion we had. I hope our listeners can benefit from the pointers that we have put forward today, and they can take informed decisions about their citizenship needs. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Esha. And thank you for listening to the Bitcoin Lawyer Show. And again, we are your legal bridge between Bitcoin and freedom. Until next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Bitcoin Lawyer Podcast. For more information, please visit our website at www.bitcoinlawyer.com. And remember, Bitcoin Lawyer is your legal bridge between Bitcoin and freedom.